The Vatican, a world entity, billions of dollars, billions of people. The Vatican has been studying astral projection for centuries, and they found out some amazing things, including their fears about demonic possession. Welcome, wonderful people. I'm your guy Frank. I've been doing astral projection for, well, we'll just say 30 years or so. So I know a little bit about it, right? And the Vatican, I've been to the Vatican. And, it's all nice and fuzzy on the surface, but the Vatican has been into a lot of things, especially when you go back over the centuries. They've gone into a lot of things. The Vatican used to have an army, it used to have a lot of armies. There were several popes at one time. All kinds of things went on. And one of the things they did was study astral projection because it is a thing, and humans have been doing it since who knows when, maybe as soon as we were human, maybe even before, who knows, right? So the Vatican, on the surface, it looks like it's just about the church and the Pope and Christianity, but like I said, the Vatican has been into a lot of things over the centuries, and they have like a lot of hidden texts, like a hidden secret library of stuff. They produce some stuff and then they take it away, or they find texts that they deem important and bring them back to the Vatican and then deem them dangerous and hide them away. So, but you get people saying things and writing things outside of that, and that's how you can hear about, like, I think it's Friar Gabriel Amarth, and he just warned that astral projection, uncontrolled astral projection, just people doing it without any rules, could invite evil spirits into your life or some kind of possession situation. I haven't found any of that to be true, but they were worried about that. And being the church, yeah, they're going to be worried about that a lot. And maybe that's why it happened. And then there was the 17th century Jesuit experiments, which were experimenting with astral projection to map heaven and hell. That, they saw that as awesome and important, that they could actually go there, map it out, and bring it back. And I have thought of similar situations like that. I mean, I'm exploring vast parts of the astral. It would be great if we could have like a map of it in whatever way, shape, or form that would best suit what we're seeing. But again, Dr. Monroe also did this in a very rudimentary way, because it's just so vast and complicated that you're not going to get a map. It's not going to look, it's not going to be like a Google map that's going to tell you where to go or what to do. It has to be really vague to cover the astral experience. And basically what it does, and what Dr. Monroe is trying to say, is that what he has experienced and mapped out is basically that the astral has layers, and the layer on the ground is probably the lowest, or a little below it is probably the lowest, and that's where you're going to find a lot of the negative entities, earthly entities, entities that aren't very evolved at all, until you go higher and higher. And what he's saying about higher and higher basically is that there are spheres of the astral that expand out in millions of layers, probably. Okay, expand way out, probably halfway to the moon or something like that. Yes, and then he would say at the outer edge of that sphere is the last timer's ring. I believe he called it, and that's where people who've had no more, or they don't want any more They don't want any more incarnations in the physical. That's where they go and hang out before they just go wherever they're going to go. So why did the church hide this stuff? Why is it like not talked about, or it's in some hidden vault in the Vatican or something like that? Well, it's kind of obvious, right? If you can go into the astral and speak to Jesus yourself, right? Why do you need to go to church? Why do you need these people? Why do you need the Vatican? Why do you need the Pope to get closer to heaven or to church, to Jesus or to divinity, when you can just do it yourself? The whole gatekeeper aspect of it is that you need them to do all that stuff. That's why you donate money to the church. So what's this demon connection with astral travel? Well, it's the church. It's part of their theology, right? It's heaven with angels and hell with demons. On the top of heaven, you got God, maybe, and Jesus at his right hand, and you have at the bottom of hell, you have Lucifer and maybe, I don't know, some other guy there, right? Some other demon there. And that's their theology. That's just how they see things. So, of course, they're going to say, well, we saw heaven, so where is hell? They already believe it as a given, whether it's there or not. So they're going to be looking for demons, whether they're there or not. Honestly, in some ways, they are there. They're not exactly what you expect, though, and they don't neatly fit into Christian theology. So the Vatican thought it was important enough to actually create a book on safe astral travel called Liber Australis. Liber Australis, I believe it said. Of course, Latin, because that's what church does, puts everything in Latin, because that's where it came from. Not exactly the Roman Latin, it's kind of like a church Latin. And I think if that translates right, it's literally translated astral life, or life in the astral, which is awesome. That's an awesome title. And they're trying to give you safe techniques in order to travel in the astral. And one of the things they found, or purport to have found, was that the lower astral planes, or where disembodied spirits, the evil ones, hang out to kind of manipulate travelers, which I totally found out too. They are there. I don't know if you want to call it lower planes or higher planes, but you can definitely tell the difference. It feels like a horror movie, kind of like that horror movie feel. It feels tricky. It feels icky. Get out of there. You don't have time to waste. The astral experience is always short. It's always too short for everything I want to do. I don't have time to waste and fool around with some guy trying to trick me and jump scare me. I don't got time for that. I'm right on to it, right off the go. If I see that it looks like a horror situation, I'm out. I don't even ask questions. And you can just ask your higher self, hey, higher self, can you get me out of here? You could just desire it, and it'll help before you form these words up in your head. Because these words, these vibrations that come out of our vocal cords mean nothing in the astral. You can just think it and desire it, and it will happen. So the Vatican has projection rituals, okay? The church has a lot of rituals, right? That's their thing. And that definitely goes back to ancient Rome. Ancient Rome in ancient times, as a given, they just loved rituals because the world was so chaotic back then. Traditions were something you could hold dear to yourself, and it felt comfortable and it felt good. But it also cements practices into that ritual so that you can follow it again and again and again. And one of their rituals is that they had the Seal of Solomon, which is what they used during exorcism. It was something that they wore that would hopefully ward off evil spirits. And they felt like if they were laying down with that, that would definitely help them in their astral travels. And they also had this thing called prayer of binding, which was to close portals after you astral traveled. Now, incredibly enough, I have heard that people that practice astral, well, mystics, honestly, they do the same thing. they have rituals that they go through to close portals around them. Some mystics are closing portals every day. That's just that thing that they do. They're like, well, I don't want anything to just come into my experience. I'm closing that stuff as a given all the time. So seeing that they are using things like the Seal of Solomon and this prayer of binding to close portals tells me that they actually knew what they were doing. They actually practiced this stuff. Probably, honestly, for at least a century. With the the Vatican is really old. It could have been more than a century, right? They knew what they were doing, and this stuff works. You could do this yourself. I would close portals before astral travel too, because do you really want unknown things coming in? That's a whole nother video, right? Sure. So what would science kind of say about this? Now, it's church and science always seem like they're on bookends with each other. Science, neuroscience would say hey man, temporal lobe seizures mimic, demonic encounters. People will say, they'll tell you that, and it'll sound like a demonic encounter. But that doesn't also explain how people, when they are in the astral, they can all be on the same page as far as what that environment was like and who was there and what was going on and all the variables. Like if they were here, they would say the background is purple or whatever, and that this is red, and this guy was sitting there and he was in red. They will say the same things, but not when you're having a seizure and you're having that seizure that seems like it's a demonic possession. No, that's not the same thing. So the occult finds all the same things out as the Vatican, right? They align with what the Vatican's doing or what the Vatican says is important. Matter of fact, I would say the Vatican probably is more accurate on the side of safety and having great experiences, right? You should be closing the portals before you go and after you go, all that great stuff. The gateway experience doesn't even go over that, and a lot of mystics and people talking about astral projection don't go over that as well. I used to have a practice for that as well. So let's go on to the next thing. So what does the Vatican say? What's their breakdown on how to have safe astral travel? Well, they have a pre-travel blessing. That's kind of a version of the grounding technique where you kind of ground yourself, and because we're like I said before, sometimes our head is up in the clouds and we're worrying about all kinds of things and maybe we're a little negative. That'll bring us down into a good baseline where we feel like we are where we're supposed to be. We're clear-headed and we know what we're doing. Technique number 2 is they visualize a white robe. This is kind of like for protection. Again, they fear demons, they fear negative influences out in the astral. And having a white robe signifies to you and makes you hopefully feel that you are protected by the divine, protected by Jesus, say. And in the astral, that is going to work. If you feel it or think it, then that is exactly what it is. And honestly, from my experience, I've seen a lot of less than positive entities, kind of like in the negative side of the spectrum, that use these kind of techniques. They dress up in all kinds of things to make themselves feel more powerful or more protected. I've seen them dress up in spacesuits. I've seen them dress up in armor. Sometimes they have horns, like, right, the devil and all that stuff. Sometimes they have horns. Sometimes they have teeth. Whatever makes them feel powerful and protected. And we can do that too. We don't have to do that. I don't do the robe thing, but I feel innately that the astral is a divine playground that God gave us to be fully protected so we can do fully what we want to do when we're out there. And he has our back no matter what. Also, the Vatican says never call for help. And I agree with this with some caveats. What I think that what they're trying to say is that you shouldn't blankly call for help from anybody, and that is really true, especially if you are the kind of person that is astral traveling in the physical realm. You never just blankly throw out help. Anytime I've done that, I haven't gotten a satisfactory result. Either they're going to be surly or complaining or not wanting to be there. That's on the upside, right? On the downside, they could be downright evil, tricky, and jump scares and the whole thing. No, don't just blankly ask for help. Ask for help from your higher self. Ask for help from Jesus, from God, or from your ancestors or your personal guides. If you feel that you have a connection with them, you can ask personally for them as well. But I have to tell you that the best way that I have found is asking for help from your higher self. The reason why is that the higher self is most connected with you than anything else, probably at a higher plane. And it will give you adventures that are unimaginable to you now, but still in alignment with what you need and what's most beneficial. And as a bonus, throw in there, the Vatican also has a 3-day rule, right? What is that? That's a 3-day rule that says that you shouldn't be doing astral travel any more than 3 days in a row. Don't know really why, but I can certainly guess why. It is probably because you become less grounded in this reality when you're living in another reality, right? It'll be like you have 2 lives, and then you'll kind of be thinking about what you need to do here, but you'll also be thinking about what you need to do there. And the fear is probably then that what you're doing here isn't getting enough attention as it should because you're doing stuff over there as well. And if you cut it down to 3 days or so, you can kind of more focus in there. And to some degree, I'm okay with that. Dr. Monroe, he was going apparently on the far end of his life, at the later end of his life, he was so efficient at leaving his body. He was doing it spontaneously every night. There was no 3-day rule. It was 365. That was his rule. And it was completely fine. But yes, he did have another life, and he had things that he was trying to do and accomplish in the astral just like you do here. And that is a thing when you are an astral traveler or liver, right? An astral liver or liver or whatever. Yes, you will have a secondary life, but that's kind of like a hobby, right? Or like you have a life at home, but you have a life at work, or you have a life at home, but you also have a life when you go out with your buddies. Okay, guys, you know how it is. Like, subscribed, all that good stuff down below because you know you want to.